feels so good. What's happening, guys? My name's Nicholas Renaud, and in this video, we're going to be building our very own hand pose detector. Let's take a deeper look as to what we're going to be going through. So what is hand pose recognition or hand pose detection? Well, it's a deep learning technique that allows you to detect different landmarks within your hand. So for example, a landmark might be represented by the base of your wrist, a joint within your thumb, or even the tip of your finger. Now, the hand pose model that we're going to be using is provided by the Tensorflow.JS team and allows us to detect 21 different landmarks within our hand. So for example, this allows us to build a whole hand pose mesh like you can see in the slide above. Let's take a look as to what we're going to be going through today. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how to install the hand pose model, how to actually build a real-time hand pose detection app, and then last but not least, we're going to be detecting landmarks in real time. And stay tuned till the end of the video. We're actually going to be building a special hand pose detection model. So how is this all going to work? So first up, we're going to be creating a webcam stream using React and React webcam. Then we're going to load our hand pose model using Tensorflow.JS to allow us to detect our hand. And then last but not least, we're going to be able to draw our different key points and landmarks using the HTML canvas. Ready to do it? Let's get to it. So in this video, we're going to be building our very own hand pose detector. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need to set up a lightweight application. So for that, we're going to be using React.JS, and specifically, we're going to be able to use the create React app command to do that. So if we take a look, this is the React.js documentation page, and you can see here, in order to create a React app, we just need to use the command npx create react app, and then whatever we want our app name to be, we can then jump into our app and then start it up. So let's go on ahead and do that. So we're going to open up a new terminal. So I've got one here ready. Then we're going to go into our desktop where I've already got a folder called hand pose. And then from there, we're going to run our npx create react app command. So you can see here, we've typed out the command npx create react app, and then whatever we want our app name to be. So in this case, I've called it hand pose because we're going to be building a hand pose model. And once we run this command, we're going to see a new folder pop up within our folder called hand pose. So this is going to be our hand pose application. Sweet, and that's now done. So you can see that we've got an application called hand pose here. We've got some node modules, so those are our libraries. We've also got a public folder and a source folder. Now, in terms of starting to work with this, we're going to open it up inside of a code editor. So just pick your favorite code editor. I'm going to be using VS Code, but feel free to use whatever you like. So let's go on ahead and open that up. So we've now got our code opened up inside of VS Code. Now we're mainly going to be working inside of this app.js file here. So there's a couple of key steps that we want to go through today, and I'm just going to paste those in. So specifically, let's just make this a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. So specifically, the first thing that we need to do is first up install our dependencies. We're then going to import those into our application. Then we're going to set up our webcam. So we're actually going to be using the webcam on our machine, so on our laptop. We're then going to define references to those, load up our hand pose machine learning model, which we'll take a look at in a second. We're then going to write a detect function to actually be able to detect our hand from our camera. Then we're going to draw onto the canvas so you'll actually be able to see the different points within our hand. And then later on, right at the end, we got a little special surprise there. All right, cool. So those are the core steps that we're going to need to go through. The first thing that we need to do is install our dependencies. So let's take a look at what dependencies we're going to need. Specifically, we're going to need 3 key dependencies. We're going to need to import Tensorflow.JS. We're also going to need to import our hand pose model. So this is our pre-trained machine learning or deep learning library that's been built by the Tensorflow.JS team. And then we're also going to need React webcam to work with the webcam on our computer. So if we take a look at Tensorflow.JS, you can see that there are a whole bunch of models. And in some previous videos, we've already covered face landmark detection as well as pose estimation. So we've done that one as well. So in this video, we're going to be going through hand pose detection. So you can see it's a palm detector and hand skeleton finger tracking model, and it allows us to predict 21 3D hand key points per detected hand. So the model that we're going to be using is going to be doing a single hand detection. And again, we're going to be able to label and detect each one of those points. So in order to do that, we're going to be installing the dependency for that. We're also going to be installing the dependency for React Webcam. So to do that, we can just run npm install React Webcam, and then we can import it into our project like so below. So let's go on ahead and install those dependencies. So I'm going to open up a new terminal within our project and then install those dependencies. Okay, so those are our key dependencies there. So in order to install these dependencies, we're going to be running the command inside of our terminal, npm install at Tensorflow/Tensorflow.JS or TF.JS. Then we're going to be running at Tensorflow-models/handpose. And then the last one, which is our React Webcam, we're going to be installing React-Webcam. So let's go on ahead and install those. Those are our dependencies now installed. So you can see we're back at the command line. So we can now mark that task as done. The next thing that we're going to do is import those dependencies into our project, as well as a few other dependencies as well. So let's go on ahead and do that. Okay, so those are our dependencies imported, so we can mark those as done. Now, what we want to do is actually start setting up our webcam. So let's just quickly take a look at the dependencies that we actually imported. So first up, we brought in useRef. So this is going to allow us to have references to the elements that we've got within our web page or our DOM. Then we've commented out our logo because we're going to be stripping out all of this stuff. So this is actually going to be the stuff that's displayed within our page or application. And we're going to be ripping all this out and putting in our webcam and our canvas. Then we've imported star from TensorFlow at Tensorflow.JS. So this is going to give us our TensorFlow backend. We've also imported our hand pose model. So this is going to allow us to actually make our detections. We've brought in React Webcam. So this is going to allow us to use the webcam from our machine to go and make those detections. And then we've left app.css. So now what we can go and do is actually start setting up our webcam because we've got that dependency imported. So we're going to remove everything that's in here and set up our webcam. So let's go and do that. Okay, so that's our webcam component done. So you can see we've imported or used our webcam element that we had up here. We've also defined a reference. We haven't actually gone and defined this yet, but we'll do that in a second. And then we've included some inline styling. Now, for our canvas, we're basically going to do a similar thing, but rather than having webcam, we're going to have our canvas. Okay, so that's our webcam and our canvas set up. So you can see we've got our webcam here, same as before, and then we've gone and defined our canvas below. Again, our canvas has a canvas ref, so we can work with it later on. And then we've copied the inline styling components that we had from our webcam up here into our canvas. So they've got the exact same styling. Now what we can go and do is actually go and spin up our app so we can actually see what's actually being displayed. So let's do that. So in order to do that, all we need to do is run npm run start. And this is going to open up our app inside of a browser. So in this case, we're going to be opening it up within Chrome. And let's let that finish compiling, and then we should be able to see our app up and running. Oh, we haven't actually defined our webcam ref and our canvas ref. So let's go and do that first before we actually go and start up. Let's try that again. So basically what we've done is we've gone and defined our references. So we've used the useRef hook. So basically we imported that up there and we passed through null because we have a null reference to begin with. And then we're just passing and creating a new variable for those. So if we go and scroll over now and go to localhost 3000, you can see that we've got our app up and running. So we've got our webcam on the screen, and if we actually go and inspect the DOM, if we open this up, you can see that we've got a video and we've also got our canvas component there. So that looks like it's all up and running successfully. Again, we're not doing any deep learning stuff yet because we haven't actually brought in our hand pose model and made detections, but that's a good sign we're going ahead. So let's scroll on back to our code now and let's see where we're up to. So we've set up our webcam and our canvas, and which was down here. And we've also defined our references to those. So our references are basically going to allow us to pass this to our other functions and make detections. So let's mark that as done as well. Cool. And again, we've got a few warnings, but that's fine. It's all running fine for now because we've imported some stuff a little prematurely, but that's cool. So now the next thing that we need to go and do is load hand pose. So let's go and write a function to do that. So again, within our app function here, we're going to load our hand pose model. Okay, so you can see that we've created a new function called run hand pose. We've made it asynchronous, and then the core line in here is this line here. So you can see that we're basically going and loading our hand pose model using the hand pose.load method. And again, we're making this asynchronous, so we're going to wait for it to load. And then assuming it all loads successfully, we're going to log out hand pose model loaded. And then we're basically calling that function using run hand pose down here so that we actually go and load our model. So if we check our console now, we should be able to see our models being loaded. And you can see our hand pose models being loaded. Cool, so we can mark that now as done. Now what we're going to do is write our detect function. So this is step 6. So our detect function is actually going to be what takes our webcam and makes our detections to detect our hand. So when we actually structure this, we're basically going to be creating a set interval function here. So basically we're going to have a loop and detect hands. So we're going to be continuously detecting to see if there's a hand within our frame. And if there is, then we're going to draw. But in order to do that, we need to define a function which actually goes and detects our hand to begin with. So this is going to be the function that we write now. So let's go on ahead and do that. And then we're going to hook it back up to our run hand pose function and run it on a loop. Okay, so we're starting to set up our detect function, and we're going to be naming it detect, go figure. We're going to make it asynchronous, and then we're going to be passing our neural network, so specifically our hand pose model, to that detect function so that it can actually make those detections. So when we call it from our run hand pose model, we're basically going to be passing our hand pose model that we've loaded here, and we're going to be passing this through to our detect function. So now let's go and define all the stuff that we need to do within our detect function. Then we'll take a step back and then start writing that step by step. Okay, so we've got a couple of steps that we need to define within our detect method. So first up, we need to check whether or not we're actually receiving a video feed from our webcam. So we're going to basically have an if statement there. Then we're going to grab our video properties. So specifically, we're going to grab our width and our height, and we're going to grab our video itself. Then we're going to force set that height and width just to make sure it is definitely set. So this is something that you have to do to work with your video. We're going to set our canvas height and width to the same width as our video. We're then going to make detections, and then later on, we're going to draw our mesh, which is our step 8 over here. So let's go on ahead and start defining this stuff. Okay, so we've first up defined whether or not our data is available. So we do 3 checks. So we check that our webcam is not undefined. We then check whether or not it's not null. And then we also check our video ready state to make sure that we're receiving data. Now what we can go and do is get our video properties and set our video height and width. Okay, so we've grabbed our video properties and we've also set our video height and width. So you can see here that we're defining a variable called video. And specifically, we're using that reference that we defined before to actually go and grab that video. So we're grabbing our webcam ref, we're grabbing the current reference, and we're grabbing our video. Then we're defining our video width and our video height. A bit of code replication here, so we could actually sub this out for our video up there, but that's fine. Then we're grabbing our video width there, we're grabbing our video height, so a similar line of code there. And then what we're actually doing is we're forcing our video width. So we're getting our webcam ref, current video width, and then we're setting it to this property that we grabbed up here. So this is something that you just have to do in order to make sure that that property is actually set, so when you make those detections, it works. We're going to do a similar thing now that we just did here, but rather than passing through and specifically setting our width and our height on our webcam, we're going to be doing that for our canvas. So let's do that. Okay, so that's our canvas height and width done. Now we're on to the good bit. So we're actually going to go ahead and make these detections. So let's do that. So again, we're going to be using our neural network now and actually start making those detections. Okay, so that's probably one of the most important lines within our application. So specifically, we are grabbing our neural network, which we've passed through from this function here. And then we're using the estimate hands method to actually go and estimate our hand within the video frame. To that, we're passing our video. So basically what we're going to get out of here is all that machine learning and deep learning good stuff. So specifically, we're going to get annotations. We're going to get whether or not there's a hand in our frame, and we're going to get the different landmarks for our wrists, each of our knuckles, including our thumb, and we're going to get our fingertips as well. So now if we check our console, we should be able to see the results of that. So let's make sure it's saved. Oh, we're not going to see anything yet because we haven't actually hooked this up to our run hand pose model. So let's go and do that. So remember we said we were going to loop through and detect our hands. This is where we're going to do it. Okay, so what we're actually doing there is we're using the set interval JavaScript function. So this basically runs stuff on a loop, and we're basically going to be running it every 100 milliseconds. And what we're actually going to be running is our detect function, which we defined down here. So this basically means that every 100 milliseconds, we're going to be detecting whether or not our hand is in the frame and whether we've actually got different detections noted. So let's save that, and now we should see some stuff. Okay, so right now, that's a good sign. So you can see that we've got all of these blank arrays. Now it's returning blank because it hasn't actually detected a hand in the frame. Now, if we put a hand in our frame, you can see that we're getting slightly different arrays, right? And these are actually the detections from our hand pose model. So if we actually open one of these up, you can see that you're getting a bunch of stuff back. So we're getting different annotations. So our index finger, our middle finger, our palm base, so the base of our palm down here, our ring finger and our thumb. We're also getting bounding boxes. So if you wanted to draw a square around your hand, you could do that as well. You can see we're getting back whether or not there's a hand in the frame, so a hand in the video. And then this is mainly going to be the section that we're going to be working with. So we've also got our different landmarks. So each one of these represents a different point in the hand. So 0, I believe, represents the base. 1 represents your thumb joint. 2 represents the second joint. And 3 represents the tip of your thumb. So on and so forth. So basically, each one of these represents a different point in your hand. Cool. So we've got our hand pose model working. Now what we actually want to do is actually start drawing stuff to the screen, because right now we're not seeing anything, so it's great, but we want to draw some stuff. So let's go on back here and we can mark our detect function as done. Now what we actually want to do is actually start drawing some stuff. So specifically, we're going to be creating a new JavaScript file, and we're going to be storing our draw function within that. And we're also going to be labeling each one of these different points, so what they actually represent. So we're going to be able to create a little bit of a dictionary to work out what each one of these points are. So let's go on ahead and do that. So we're going to create a new file, and we're just going to call it utilities.js. And then from within here, the first thing that we're going to do is actually draw the points within our hand. So there's two parts of this. So there's drawing the different points, and then there's connecting the points together. So we're going to do the points first, and then we're going to connect them together to actually have that mesh defined. So let's define our drawing function. Okay, so this function is going to be called draw hand. So let's put that in the center of the screen so we can see it a little bit better. And to that, we're going to be passing our predictions, so the predictions that we've actually found within our webcam. And then we're also going to be passing through our canvas to work out where to draw appropriately. Now what we're going to do is actually loop through each one of our predictions and start drawing this. So let's do that. All right, so this is the start of our drawing function. So first up, we're going to check whether or not we've actually got any predictions, and then we're going to loop through each one of them and actually start drawing our hand. Okay, so what we're now doing is we're going to first up grab our landmarks. So if you take a look at our different predictions, so let's put our hand in view so we get some right predictions. So if we take a look at these, if we inspect our predictions, you can see that we've got our landmarks here. Now, what we're going to be doing is first up, we're extracting these landmarks. So we're grabbing our prediction.landmarks, and then we're going to loop through each one of these landmarks and draw them. So to draw them, we're first up going to grab our x point, which is going to be our first value, and then our y point, which is going to be our second value. This is our z value, which basically allows us to draw it in 3D as well, but we're just going to work with our x and our y value, and then we're going to draw it. So let's do that. Okay, so that's our drawing function done. So again, we grabbed our x value, we grabbed our y value, and then we started drawing using the HTML canvas. So if we actually take a look, these are our HTML canvas functions. So basically, we're beginning our path, we're drawing our arc, and then rather than using stroke, we're actually filling it in because we want a filled circle. So if we scroll on back, you can basically see that's what we've got here. But again, I'll include links in the description below to all the resources that we've gone and leveraged, as well as the entire code base as well. There'll be a GitHub repo that you can pick up and use if you'd like. So we've now defined our drawing function. What we need to do is bring that into our app.js file and actually start making those drawings. So let's go back into our app.js file. We're then going to import our drawing functions. So in order to import it, we've just used the standard ES6 import function. So we've imported draw hand from utilities. Now what we're going to do is within our detect function, we're actually going to draw our key points, or our landmarks. So let's go on ahead and include that down here. Okay, so we've now gone and actually leveraged our draw function. So the first thing that we've actually gone and done is we've grabbed our canvas, and specifically we've grabbed its 2D context. Then to our draw hand function, we've passed our detections, which we had up here. So remember, we were logging those out. And we've also passed this canvas bit. So basically, this should allow us to draw our different key points. So if we go back to our app now, and let's just make sure we're still running. Looks like it's fine. Save it and refresh. So our hand pose model is loaded. Let's wait for it to start making some detections. And you can see we've got our key points being drawn. Let's put our hand back into the center. Pretty cool, right? So if we minimize this, we should get a better view. So now what we can go and do is, if we wanted to, we could also change the color. So right now we're displaying it as indigo. We can make it aqua. And there you go. We've got our very own hand pose model. So right now you can see that it's just drawing the points. Still pretty cool, right? So you've got your base point, you've got the different points along your thumb, you've got the different points along this finger. So remember, each one of those 20 points or those 21 points represents a different point within your hand and on the canvas. So now what we're going to do is actually start drawing these different points together so we can actually have a full mesh defined. So let's go on ahead and update our utilities or our draw hand function to be able to draw those lines as well. So let's do that. So again, we're still within our utilities function. And now what we're going to do is up here, we're going to start drawing our different, or right after our landmarks, we're going to start drawing our mesh. So let's do that. Now, before we actually go and define our mesh drawing function, we need to bring in the different key points that we've got. So let's do that first. So specifically, we need to define a dictionary for the mapping of each finger. So which of the points within our particular detection represent a thumb, which detect an index finger, which detects a middle finger, ring finger, pinky, and so on. Okay, so that is our finger joints dictionary defined. So basically you can see that we've got one key per finger. So first up, if we take a look at our thumb, what this is basically saying is that points 0, 1, 2, and 3 represent our thumb. Our index finger is point 0, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this basically means that we can join each of these points together to get a full mesh of our hand. So this is what we're going to do down here. So let's start doing that. All right, so first up, we're going to loop through our fingers. Then what we're going to do is loop through our pairs of joints. Okay, so you can see here that we're looping through each one of these fingers. And what we're basically saying is that we're going to loop through the first x minus 1 object. So we're going to loop through 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is basically because when we go and pick up the two different pairs of joints, we're going to grab the current value, which is going to equal k, and then k plus 1, which is going to represent the pair. So say we're at point 0, we're going to grab 0, and then our second joint is going to be 1, and we're going to draw a path from 0 to 1, and that's going to give us our mesh. So let's finish up this function and actually see our drawing. So we just needed to include one line there, which basically defines our finger. So let's just bring that back, hit save, and it doesn't look like we've got any errors. So now if we take a look at our app. Okay, so we're making detections. Let's check now. And there you go. So we're now drawing our full mesh. So you can see everything drawn. Sweet, so we've now gone and defined our whole face mesh model. So if we take down the green screen, you can see that we're now drawing our entire hand. We can do that other hand. Pretty cool, right? Awesome. So if we wanted to, you can actually customize this a bunch. So if you wanted to change, for example, the size of your dots, you can actually just go into ctx.arc, and this parameter here is going to be how big the actual dot is. Say, for example, we wanted huge dots, we can change that to 10, and say, for example, we wanted gray dots, we can change our fill style, and that's going to change our color. So if we now take a look, should get bigger dots, and they should be gray as well. Let's wait for it to start making detections, and there you go. So you can see we've now got bigger dots, and we've also got gray dots. Now, I said at the start of this video, we're also going to do something pretty cool, and we're actually going to make our hand pose detector show up as the infinity gauntlet. So rather than rebuilding our model, all we need to do is redefine what the colors of each one of these dots and the sizes are going to be. So let's go and do that. This is purely optional. We're now done. We've gone and defined our hand pose model so you can see all of this, but I thought it'd be pretty cool to go and do this. So let's try it out. All right, so rather than having to go and write every single piece of this by hand, all this code again is going to be available in the GitHub repo. So I figured I'd just sort of paste in these parameters to make it a little bit easier. So really all we're going to be doing in order to actually be drawing our infinity gauntlet rather than just drawing our hand is we're going to be changing our line color, our line width, and then specifically we're going to be dynamically assigning the point colors as well as the point sizes. So when you take a look at the infinity gauntlet, the infinity stones are obviously different sizes, with the yellow one being the largest. So let's go on ahead and draw that. So I've got a dictionary here which basically defines our style. Again, this is all going to be available in the GitHub repo. So we're going to call it infinity. Cool. And if we take a look at this dictionary, you can see here that we've got some specific colors. So 0.0 is going to be yellow, and it's going to be size 15. So that's the yellow infinity stone. I can't remember what they each represent, but you sort of get the idea. 0.2, which is going to be our thumb here, is going to be green, and that's going to be slightly smaller. So it's going to be size 10. Likewise, we've got purple, we've got blue, we've got red, and we've got orange down here. So some of them are going to be larger and colored. The rest of the points are just going to be gold because the infinity gauntlet is gold. So let's go and update our styling so that we can actually draw this. So we're going to make our stroke style gold as well and leave our line width. Now what we're going to do is we're going to dynamically assign the size of the points as well as the fill style. So we're going to our style dictionary here, and we're basically going and grabbing the specific landmark, and then we're grabbing the size, and then for our fill style, we're grabbing again the landmark, and we're grabbing the color. We should probably take a quick look at this function here that we defined to draw our joints. So first up, we grabbed our first joint, then we grabbed our second joint, remember k+1, and then we used our regular HTML canvas drawing functions to actually draw those paths. So first up, we define the first point, which is going to be our first joint, and specifically we're grabbing our X and our Y values. Then we're drawing a line to the second joint, which is going to, again, grab our second joint index, again, our X and our Y value. Then we're setting the style, we're setting the line, and we're creating our stroke. Now, what we're going to do, as soon as we save this, we're going to be able to get our infinity gauntlet styling. So let's save it, and let's now take a look. So again, same app. The only thing that's really going to have changed is the styling of our hand pose detections. So let's try this out. So let's wait till we get some detections, and we should be able to see that. And there you go. We've now built the infinity gauntlet. You know what? I'm kidding. So if we go and again, we can take the green screen down, and you can see each of these detections. We can switch hands. Again, I've just managed to switch the infinity gauntlet onto a different hand, just like that. Boom, 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 boom. And there you go. So we've now gone and fully built our hand pose detection model. So let's take a quick look, because we have done quite a fair bit of stuff. So we've installed our dependencies, we've imported those, we've set up our webcam, our canvas, we've defined references to those, loaded our hand pose model up here, and then we've gone and made our detections. We've also drawn those. We haven't brought them in from Tensorflow. And we've built our drawing functions, and we've even defined our own infinity gauntlet detector model. So if we go and take a look again, boom, you can see it. And that about wraps up this video. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and tick that bell so you get notified of when I release future videos. And let me know in the comments below what you're going to be using your very own hand pose detector for. Thanks again for tuning in. Peace.